This weekend, the World Fitness Project wrapped up Tour Stop 2 in Mesa, Arizona.
And here we go.
They had some hiccups during the first tour stop, but they are billed as the professional sports league, so I'm sure they got them ironed out for Tour Stop 2.
Prestige worldwide. Why?
Well, surely at least they fixed the rewind button issue.
It looks similar.
All right, let's cover Tour Stop 2 in Arizona. I'm going to try to be fair by bringing up the good and the bad, but it was rough at times, so there's going to be more bad in this case. I showed you Austin Hatfield earlier as the GHD machine crumbled beneath him in the middle of an event. I hope he wasn't planning on having children anytime soon. I'll take your NorCal and raise you WFP. All right, well, I mean, it happens. I mean, not really like ever, but in the absence of precedents, surely they found a way to fix things in a manner that would be fair to everyone. Looks like he just sat around for the rest of the event and they used an online random number generator to pick his final time. I'm going to hold you to a high standard because you are the ones who are billing yourselves as the professionals who are clearly competing with the CrossFit Games. In all seriousness, thank goodness that this wasn't the CrossFit Games, because this is a situation that just cannot happen due to human error. So they averaged out the times and gave him that, I think. But this is the type of thing where if it were the CrossFit Games and he were in a close match, we would have a James Sprague-like situation from 2024 where people are wondering if he really won the CrossFit Games. That's not it. It happened multiple times. Ricky Garard's bike broke down and then they gave him another C2 bike and that broke, from my understanding. I saw it on Andrew Hiller's Instagram. If I were the manufacturers, I definitely wouldn't be happy. Hearing in the behind the scenes that the leaders in the World Fitness Project are helping to put these machines together. Oh, hey. Well, I just think it's important as a leader to be at the ground floor. That's why I'm putting together this GHD machine. Hey. And they're not put together properly or whatnot. What was I doing? I was doing something. Oh, well. At least for sure, in the case of the GHD machine, it makes your equipment look bad. Not everybody is going to go do the research to find out exactly what happened. And at the end of the day, people are going to think the equipment is cheap. There were a lot of small items like this and errors in execution. One example would be that Guy Mojeros hit 420 pounds after failing 430, and then Austin Hatfield smashed 422. But it turns out when Guy had failed 430, it was actually 440. And when he put 420 on, it was actually 430. So Guy actually won that event. And at the level of the CrossFit Games, which the World Fitness Project is trying to be, yes, the athlete should know the weight, but the judges should as well. And this type of thing really can't happen, particularly if somebody like Austin Hatfield is putting 2 pounds extra on to beat Guy, only to find out later that he didn't. Little intermission, 20 seconds. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. I kind of want to tell you to hit the like button too, but usually when you tell people to do two things, they only do one. So hit the subscribe button. And also check out my sponsors, Thirdsy. I absolutely love this. I do feel more recovered. I tried it for a long time before I started working with them. Crap, I just told you to do 3 things. Now you're not going to do any of them. Okay, just do the Thirdsy thing then. I picked that one. Do that one. And about that rewind button. So day one, the rewind button didn't work at all for me on the desktops. At the very end of the day, when I went back in, it was working. I did a poll on my Instagram and it was like 50-50 working or not working. So there definitely were issues. When I go into my phone today, it is working and there is a pause button, but there is no pause option on the desktop. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I would imagine that a lot of people are watching on their desktop or laptop as opposed to their mobile device. You usually want a bigger screen for sporting events. Look, bottom line is it's really clunky. The rewind wasn't working for a while. There's no pause on the desktop. I really wish that they were on YouTube. I don't know if they're not on YouTube so that they can hide the live streaming numbers or not. That's been a question that has been asked, but it's still not working great. And it made me a lot less interested in keeping up with things. And at some point I figured it out. I had an epiphany. The WFP is like the stimulus checks during COVID. I got the check. I didn't really need it. I know it wasn't good for the economy long term, but I certainly wasn't sending it back to the government. Definitely still cashed it, and I still watch the WFP. It's a lot of the best athletes in the world working out against each other, and I love CrossFit. Even though I know that long term, this does not ultimately help the sport, which I'll come around to at the end. All right, on to some observations here. So personally, my viewing experience, it was a little bit flat and boring for me. I think the reason that I was so into the first one, Tour Stop 1, is because it was new. You're looking to see if they screw things up or not because it's their first time doing it. And there's some tension there between HQ and the World Fitness Project, or whether you just want to see, hey, what the heck is going on? Is this going to be awesome? These are my favorite athletes. Either way, it was novel and I couldn't take my eyes off it. Now that the novelty wore off a little bit from the initial tour stop, I don't know if it was the workouts or what it was, but I just wasn't that into it. There was a few athletes that I wanted to watch. I'm a big fan of James Sprague, so I enjoyed watching that. And I really liked the clean event. As far as watching it, I thought the clean event was very exciting, and I liked the sprint right after it. But again, overall, it felt flat. Safety. They ran in 99-degree heat in the morning.
But it was between 100 and 110 degrees the entire time I was there.
You've got the freaking GHD falling apart.
The thought of people working out outside.
You got the 8-minute cleans I mentioned earlier. Hiller made a post saying that somebody was going to injure themselves on the clean, and that's exactly what happened.
In August is one of the crazier things I've ever heard.
And a lot of people were pulling out due to injury. I don't think that's necessarily the event's fault. I think it's the full schedule's fault, most likely. People just not getting fully healed. But when you make yourself out to be a competitor of the games, and you pull people away, and you particularly target the big names who are boycotting, and you are trying to be the professional league, and people associated with you or people from the WFP directly are talking about issues that CrossFit HQ has, like leaks or safety, you put a target on your back. You're supposed to be doing it better. And I just don't see that in the execution. I don't see that in the fact that they have had safety issues. I don't see that in the fact that they have had leaks. The only thing that I do see is the pro card and the upfront salary that really differentiates things. As far as the on-site things are concerned, the crowd did look very engaged. They did get loud at times. I saw some videos and it looked like it was pretty full, but it was a small venue from what I'm seeing. There was a string on Reddit and things like that. Some other people talking about it. And somebody on Reddit was saying, and they seemed very unbiased, but they were saying that all the local gyms were giving away tickets and that they suspected that there weren't a lot of tickets that were actually bought. Consistent theme is that Vendor Village has been criticized a lot. It wasn't very big. There wasn't much going on there. Now, that being said, I think if you were there, it was probably great. Think about this for a second. It's like going to a concert for your favorite artist, a big artist, but it's in a more intimate setting. You have all of your favorite athletes there doing CrossFit, and it's in a more intimate setting. I think that would probably be pretty exciting. But as far as watching it from home and the bigger picture, just wasn't all that impressive for somebody trying to compete with the games. Now, I mentioned the injuries earlier, and we have to ask ourselves a question leading into next year when we hear things about exclusivity and things like that. Are the athletes really going to be able to handle a WFP season, the CrossFit Games, and in addition to that, Rogue, Wadapalooza, things like that? It's really shaping up for somewhat of a face-off. And again, I'll cover this at the end of the video, but I don't think that's good. All right, production-wise, I think I heard Timu Rogue a lot the last time, and it seemed like that again. Look, it's not Hamilton Road. It's not Rogue. It's not the CrossFit Games, but it's also not Brian Friend. And that's not a knock on Brian Friend. Brian openly says that he will give you a budget CrossFit. He'll get you a stream, and it's not going to be at the same level as these other companies. This is somewhere in the middle. But if you're spending all the money up front and you're like, we're going to make this professionalized and everything's going to be cool. Yeah, the lighting's cool and you've got all the good athletes, but the production still is not as good. Now, All that being said, we still got to wait till we see what happens at Copenhagen because it's all supposed to be leading to that. As far as the announcing, I wasn't a huge fan. I thought it was average at best. Seth Page is a rock star. He was doing some of the post-game and pre-game stuff. Look, I'm not saying this because I'm biased. I've been on a few podcasts with him, and I have always said he is the most underutilized person in the space. If you've ever seen him on Around the Whiteboard, on Coffee Pods and Wads, he is extremely knowledgeable, quick-witted, and entertaining. Owns a bunch of affiliates, and the rest was okay. There were a lot of errors on the graphics. Graphics. I don't know who does the graphics. I know that Brian Friend is the storyteller. I do not want my GHD with a fox. I do not want my GHD missing bolts and locks. I do not want my GHD to fall. I do not want my GHD to crush my balls. Athlete stuff. Definitely a games caliber roster here, without a doubt. On the men's side, a lot of familiar names. Vellner was a huge surprise as he was, 20th or worse at the last one. I thought he was completely cooked, but he got the podium. Enola Kai, a little bit of a surprise, but other than that, the names were Sprague, Pepper, Ricky, Crouch, Hopper, Hatfield, and then Tudor, who also took 10th at the games. So 8 out of the 10 were not surprising. Other than Vellner, the people who sat out the game season, you have Jack Farlow in 13th. You have Quant at 14th, Chandler Smith 15th, Guy 16th, Noah Olson 18th, Travis Mayer 19th, Luca in 22nd, and Hoffer in 23rd. He did not finish the last event, I believe. So on the men's side overall, it looks like there's not a big connection between the scheduling being daunting and that affecting how they performed. All these guys coming in fresh didn't really do a whole lot. But to be fair, a lot of them are kind of at that age where they're starting to slow down. When we talk about Chandler Smith, when we talk about Noah Olson, Travis Mayer, people like that. On the women's side, like Vellner, Laura Horvath has redeemed herself. Taking 9th and getting beat by as many people as she did was super surprising last time, as she was considered the second best woman in CrossFit to Tia Claire Toomey. So for her, this is a huge comeback. Emma Tall did sit out the game season, and she took 2nd, which is better than she did last time. Amy Kringle looked good again. Brooke Wells looked way better than she did at the games. Lucy Campbell consistently looking fantastic now. Ariel Lowen in that familiar 5 to 10 range. Emma Lawson, not in the game season, takes 7th. Super young, a lot of potential. Sydney Wells at 8th is by far the best she's performed all year, considering the field particularly. Annika Greer 9th, Danielle Brandon in 10th. But one interesting question that this brought up for me is wondering whether or not the fittest should be measured over a period of time, or if everything should be leading to one thing, to one event. Or would it be more beneficial for people to have to stay consistently in shape throughout the year? Or do we want people to go insanely hard for a few months out of the year to peak for the CrossFit Games? Now, when we talk about golf, we're not talking about the fittest, but this is what they do for the Tour Championship. All the events leading into it give you a certain amount of points that determines where you start when the Tour Championship event starts. And the reason I'm wondering about this is because you've got somebody like James Sprague who seems to consistently be in the mix. He won Wadapalooza. He took 2nd in Tour Stop 1, 2nd Tour Stop 2, 3rd at the CrossFit Games. Lucy Campbell won Wadapalooza. She took 2nd at the CrossFit Games, 5th at this, and at Tour Stop 1, I think 5th as well, maybe 3rd. Just out of crazy curiosity, I'd be interested to hear comments about what we would think about the season leading up to the games mattering in some way, shape, or form. Even if that means that an in-person semifinal event counts as event 1 going into the CrossFit Games, meaning you have to stay fit throughout the year, also motivating people to go to in-person semifinals, and hopefully the last chance qualifier would be after all of that. And this brings me to my final conclusion, which is no different than it's been the entire time. Supply and demand. There is a reason why I think that the WFP is not good for CrossFit. Everybody seems to ask, why are you so against it? Who cares about the money? What does it matter if they want to spend their money? Because when it's all said and done, when whoever's funding it is sick of losing money or when the credit card gets declined, CrossFit will be left in a worse state. The demand for the sport is not there. Rogue does it as a display or an exhibition for all of their equipment. That's how it's justified. It's marketing. For the longest time, the CrossFit Games has lost money, broke even, maybe made a little bit of a profit because it has been a marketing event for CrossFit methodology in which we put on display what it looks like at the most elite level. And then we try to do our best to point back to the affiliates where the magic happens. And we all start at the same place. This is a beautiful thing. This is the magic of CrossFit and of the Worldwide Open. The WFP takes that and it sucks it all out. People do not realize how small we are. Like I've said a million times, nobody outside of people who do CrossFit want to watch people on TV doing toes to bar. They have no idea what's going on. Most of the people who do CrossFit still don't want to watch it. So when the money runs out and this is all over, we'll be left with the same problem. We'll have the same amount of CrossFitters or less if we're not investing in something that's actually getting more people to do CrossFit, to follow the methodology, and there will be no sport. If we were to double the amount of people doing CrossFit, for instance, there would probably be a legitimate demand there. We need to tout the benefits of CrossFit. We need to get people doing CrossFit. We need people to love CrossFit. Like I've come to love CrossFit. And then when you love CrossFit, it's kind of fun to watch these people at a high level doing the same stuff that we do. I mentioned the stimulus checks, and the reason I thought of that is because it's such a quick fix. Nobody wants to wait out the long solution anymore. Nothing good comes without a cost, comes without patience, without hard work, and we're just not there yet in CrossFit. So I want to be investing in whoever is trying to get people to do CrossFit more. You're not going to get all these new people who don't do CrossFit suddenly watching the World Fitness Project. The reason that the CrossFit Games did a little bit of that is because of their crazy, awesome marketing, the grassroots type effort that was going on, and the whole thing about the fittest on earth. There was a storyline overall, and then they highlighted other storylines within the storyline. The WFP just doesn't have that soul or heart that CrossFit did in their marketing. It's just all done too fast. It's flat, and it feels like an imitation. And if the athletes can't compete in this really long season anymore, and the rumors are true, and WFP moves towards exclusivity and big six-figure contracts, say they pull away 30%, 50% of the games athlete, this is not going to help. Waters the Open down, the games down. I've mentioned before that golf and tennis didn't start getting viewership on TV until people started doing golf and tennis in the 60s and 70s. And those are sports that are way easier to follow than CrossFit. And we have this manufactured situation where we're losing money and think that the product in and of itself in the WFP will eventually increase demand, but that's just not going to happen. It won't. You can't even get the people who love CrossFit to go watch it or to tune in. We need a congruent message of what CrossFit is, an organized plan to get more people doing CrossFit. And that's why I'm always going to align myself with the organization that is focused on getting more people to do CrossFit. And the sport will follow after that. Final grade, C-, withholding full judgment until the main event in Copenhagen. That is all for now.